Good evening, everyone. Call the meeting to order. So the first order of business is the election of the chair. I will now open nominations. Please raise your hand if you wish to put forward a nomination. Please note that a committee member may nominate themselves. Please go ahead.
I would like to nominate Stan Cameron for chair.
Yes, please go ahead.
I second it.
Oh, we're getting there. Getting there. Is there any other nominations? Anything from online? No. So I don't see any other nominations. So I have received nomination for Trustee Cameron to serve as the chair of this committee. So I have motion from Trustee Davies to appoint Trustee Cameron as chair of the Physical Planning, Finance, and Building Committee. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Yes. Do you, member Trustee Cameron, accept the nomination?
I do. Thank you.
We now have a motion that the nomination be closed. Trustee Hall, second. Yes, Trustee. Congratulations, Trustee Cameron.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Glad you didn't go too far.
No. Didn't want to sit in the chair seat when I wasn't the chair anymore. So thank you. We'll get our next election underway for vice chair. I would like to say thank you to my colleagues on the committee for the privilege of serving as chair on this committee for the next 2 years. I very much appreciate this opportunity. Thank you. So this second order of business is the election of the vice chair. We will now open nominations. Please raise your hand if you wish to put forward a nomination. Please note that a committee member may nominate themselves. Yes, thank you. Trustee Johal, who would you like to nominate, sir?
I nominate Trustee William.
Okay, thank you. I have received one nomination for Trustee Will Davies to serve as vice chair of the committee. Are there any other members who wish to serve as vice chair of this committee? Seeing and hearing none. I have a motion for Trustee Davies to act as vice chair of the Physical Planning, Finance, and Building Committee. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Trustee Alves, thank you. Do you, Trustee Davies, accept the nomination?
It would be an honor and a privilege.
Thank you. May I now have a motion that the nominations be closed? Trustee Alves? And we also have a motion that Trustee Davies be declared the vice chair of this committee. Trustee Johal, will you? And seconded by Trustee Alves. There was only one nomination. Congratulations, Trustee Davies.
Yes. Are
you coming over?
No, I have to go over.
No, this committee, you.
No.
You can sit there, that's okay. Or you can make a choice, but, so let's continue on. After the election, item number 3 on the agenda is a motion to convene into closed session. Can we have a motion to convene? Trustee Davies, Trustee Alves? We are going to now be in closed session. And item number 4, this allows us for item number 4 to rise and report from the closed session. And this is the report. That the report from our closed session regarding the minutes of the Physical Planning, Finance, and Building Committee meeting of October 8th, 2024, a report on tenders for the Caledon East Replacement Building, a report to approve the installation of artificial track and field surfaces at 4 Peel District School Board schools, the combined capital project status report and the procurement activity report for the period of September 1st, 24 to October 31st, 2024, all be received and the recommendations therein be approved. All in favor of this? I suppose we should move it first, right? Trustee Promoli moved to the floor. Trustee Elves was seconded. Now all in favor of this report. Thank you. Item number 5, staff, can we have the acknowledgement of traditional lands, please?
The land upon which we work, live, and sustain ourselves is the ancestral and treaty lands of the Michizagig Anishinaabe, also known today as the Mississaugas of the Credit, the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land. We also recognize the rich pre-contact history and relationships which include the Anishinaabe and the Ongwe-Hongwe.
Since European contact, this land continues to be home to Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. As responsible community members, we value the diversity, dignity, and worth of all people.
Colonialism displaced and dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their ancestral land
and continues to deny their basic human rights, dignities, and freedoms.
We are committed to learning true history to reconcile, make reparations, and fulfill our treaty obligations to the original peoples and our collective responsibilities to the lands, water, animals, and each other for future generations.
Thank you. Item number 6 is approval of the agenda. Trustee Bailey, will you move that, please? And Trustee McDonald, will you second it? Yes, thank you. All in favor of the agenda as we have it? That is carried. Item number 7 are declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any to declare? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move to item 8, which is approval of minutes. 8.1, we'll take the first two together. 8.1 is the stopper minutes of June 21st, 2024, and 8.2 is the stopper minutes of September 25th, 2024. Let's move these to the floor. Trustee Davies, will you move it? And Trustee Elves, will you second? So it's on the floor. Are there any questions or concerns about those two sets of minutes? Seeing, hearing none, all in favor of receipt? Oh, sorry, those are approval. Those are approval. Yes, thank you. This is approval. No, okay. But I think that it is receipt because it's not our specific alone committee, whereas the physical planning and the third one, 8.3, is ours for approval. Thank you, Nicole. 8.3, sorry, did we say all in favor?
No.
Okay, all in favor of receipt. There we go. For 8.1 and 8.2, that is carried. 8.3 is fiscal planning, finance, and building committee meeting of October 8th, 2024. That because that is our committee, we are approving those meeting minutes. Trustee Johal, move it to the floor, please. Trustee McDonald, will you second it? Thank you. Are there any questions or concerns about those minutes? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor of approval of those? That is carried. Thank you. 10.1, sorry, item 10 is the staff reports. 10.1 is the annual planning document, also known as APD, for 2024-2025 is here as a recommendation for our approval. This is a presentation by, I think, everybody in the planning department. But it is Matthew Thomas, Suzanne Blakeman, Dana Gutierrez, Alex Blacher, and Julian Wiggle. These are all planning department members. And so we'll offer it up to Controller Thomas to get us started.
Thank you, Chair Kamner, and through you, good evening. The planning team, as you've noted, is pleased to present the annual planning document, or APD, for 2024-2025. The APD is PDSB's major capital planning report that covers not only the current school year, but also takes a look ahead to the next 10 years. The APD aligns with PDSB's multi-year strategic plans and goals of student achievement, safety and well-being, equity and inclusion, and community engagement by ensuring that PDSB is well positioned to offer high quality and innovative learning and teaching spaces to serve our entire student and staff population, both now and in the future. This year's APD includes some changes to the presentation of the way that some of the information has been traditionally presented, with a view towards making it more user-friendly and highlighting key information that is typically sought after. I will now ask Manager Blakeman and her team to provide more detailed information contained in the 24-25 annual planning document.
Thank you, Matthew, and through you, Chair, and congratulations, Chair.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. The main purpose of the APD is to present in one document recommendations regarding new schools, additions, boundary changes, and grade reorganizations that will impact students in the upcoming school year. It has grown over time to become a valuable resource document, including enrollment trends and projections, development in the region, and information on procedures and program-related items. Every member of the planning and enrollment team contributes to the creation of the document, as do many principals, superintendents, and trustees. The APD cycle begins and is built on the enrollment projections completed in January and February of each year. Planning staff meet with superintendents, principals, and trustees throughout the spring to collaboratively develop draft recommendations. COO and Associate Director Gill reviews recommendations in late August, early September, before their viability is confirmed by new school year enrollment. After the APD is presented to PPF&B and the board, usually in November, community information sessions take place in December and January to share approved recommendations with families. I'll now pass it over to Alex to take you through some enrollment information.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Suzanne, and through you, Mr. Chair. I'll just spend a few slides talking about some enrollment trends divided up by municipality. So starting with Mississauga, we've been declining in Mississauga for 10 plus years. However, as you can see by this graph, that was really expedited upon the pandemic in 2020. We do expect the decline in Mississauga to continue over the next 5 plus years, and we really don't see any growth until the 7 to 10 year mark, once some of the commercial areas are planned for redevelopment. So we're talking maybe Erin Mills Town Center, Meadowvale Town Center, what the city of Mississauga is calling the Reimagining the Mall project. So since 2019, Mississauga is down 5,000 elementary students up until 2024 this year. Secondary is down 1,500 students. Moving on to Brampton. So we were growing in Brampton for quite some time. The commencement of the pandemic in 2020 halted that growth. And since then, we've seen an enrollment decline of 4,000 Brampton students in the elementary panel. We did continue to see growth in secondary in Brampton over the course of the pandemic, and that was largely as a result of the growth in elementary that happened previous to the pandemic, then graduating from grade 8 into the secondary panel. However, we're running out of existing growth areas in Brampton, so we do not expect to return to a period of growth within the next 5 years in Brampton. We are projecting sort of a stable enrollment in Brampton, where the growth basically just offsets the decline we're seeing in the more established neighborhoods of Brampton. And finally, moving on to Caledon. This graph does look a lot better compared to the other two. So over the past 10 years, you can see some ups and downs in the Caledon enrollment, particularly in elementary. And because of James Grieve Holding School, we were holding various selections of students in Caledon from Brampton. So as those are held in Caledon, their bar graph goes up for that year. When they return to their home schools in Brampton, the graph comes down. So you can see from 2023 to 2024 this year, a small decline in Caledon elementary students. And that is as a result of Malala moving into its building. That allowed us to bring a number, 250-ish students out of James Grieve into their home school. And that's why the Caledon elementary enrollment looks like it took a small hit. Going forward, however, we are expecting significant rates of growth for Caledon. The rates of growth are significant. However, I would just warn that the sheer numbers of students aren't enough to offset the decline we're expecting in Mississauga and Brampton. So the rate of growth is strong, but because our starting place is about 6,000 students, it isn't enough to replace the loss we're seeing. We don't expect to return to a period of growth, particularly in elementary, for sort of the next 5 to 7 years. So from there, I'll pass it back to Suzanne to go over our first recommendation.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex, and through you, Chair. Planning staff recommends that the board approve any new school that has been or will be included in the capital priority submission. The recommendation for Castlemore East Secondary School is here, since it was included for the first time in the September 2024 capital priority submission to the ministry. The school will be approximately 1,500 pupil places and will be located at the southeast corner of the Gore Road and Countryside Drive. The first table on this slide lists the 4 schools for which we've received capital funding approval and are either under construction or in the pre-construction planning and permitting phase. The second table lists the schools that planning staff anticipate will be required in each municipality over the next 10 years. All subject to change, of course. I'll pass it over to Julian now.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. Through you, Chair. Recommendation 2A is a boundary change to establish the long-term boundary for Mount Pleasant 9 Public School. In the 2023-2024 annual planning document, Mount Pleasant 9 Public School was established to provide enrollment relief to Aylesbury Public School as well as Dolson Public School. Both schools have had active enrollment class caps for several years. Students exceeding the enrollment class caps have been redirected to James Grieve Public School. While the new school is under construction, Mount Pleasant 9 Public School is being held at the Aloha Holding School. Student occupancy for the new building is planned for September 2025. It is recommended that effective September 2025, students in the hatched areas on the map be directed to Mount Pleasant 9 Public School. Students in the hatched areas are currently attending Aylesbury Public School, Dolson Public School, as well as students who have been redirected to James Grieve due to the enrollment caps. To reduce transition, students in grade 7 residing in the hatched areas during the 2024-25 school year and attending Aylesbury, Dolson, or James Grieve who have the option to stay for grade 8 or attend Mount Pleasant 9 for grade 8. The creation of the long-term boundary for Mount Pleasant 9 Public School will provide much needed enrollment relief to the Mount Pleasant community. Next slide, Dave. Through your chair, recommendation 2B is a boundary change to better balance enrollments between Lauren Park Secondary School and Port Credit Secondary School. Over the past few years, Port Credit Secondary School has experienced enrollment growth, resulting in a need for a enrollment cap. Meanwhile, Lauren Park Secondary School has surplus classroom space to accommodate additional students. Within the Port Credit Secondary School boundary, construction of the Brightwater community is currently underway, which will generate enrollment growth for the area. To better balance enrollments and use existing space at Lauren Park Secondary School, it is recommended that effective September 2026, the hatched area on the map be directed to Lauren Park Secondary School. This boundary change would phase in beginning with grade 9 students in September 2026, with additional grades being phased in each year. Students residing in the hatched area would have the option to attend Lauren Park Secondary School prior to September 26th through a flex boundary. I will now pass the presentation over to Dave.
Thank you, Julian.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Cameron. This next item in front of you is an enrollment class cap for Elm Drive Public School. While the other items that have been previously discussed were recommendations, it's important to note that this item is an information item outlining the details for the enrollment cap at Elm Drive. An enrollment cap is a temporary measure put in place to address enrollment pressures at the school. Elm Drive was built as a 650 pupil place school and can accommodate a maximum of 12 portables. As of September, the school was utilizing all classroom spaces and 9 portables. Since its opening, it has experienced significant enrollment growth from high-rise condominium development. As a precautionary measure, and to ensure there is a plan in place should enrollment exceed available capacity, an enrollment cap is being recommended. So the details of the enrollment cap are as follows. Elm Drive can accommodate a maximum of 37 classes. So this is utilizing all available classroom spaces plus the 12 portables outside. Within these 37 classes, there's a maximum of 7 kindergarten classes. Once the enrollment cap is active, meaning once all spaces in existing classes are full, new students will be directed to Eden Rose Public School for kindergarten to grade 5 and Fallingbrook Middle School for grade 6 to 8. Both of these locations have available classroom capacity to accommodate additional students. No existing students at Elm Drive will be affected by the enrollment cap. While the cap is active, transportation will be provided in accordance with Transportation Policy TRN 1400. Once the cap is active, communication will be shared with families on the school website, through the Find Your School tool, and on the board's website. Okay. So as Suzanne mentioned at the beginning, the APD also serves as a valuable resource document. And the graphic that you see on the screen before you is highlighting some of the different areas within the annual planning document that contain valuable information. We have information on the capital funding process. We have information on enrollment projections by municipality. We also have our 10-year enrollment projections, as well as information on school utilization. So for example, the schools that are operating at 60% or less, or in the case of the item I just described, schools that are experiencing an enrollment cap. So along with that, we also have information about programs. We have French immersion, we have regional learning choices programs, and there's also a lengthy list of appendices that include a variety of different pieces of information and maps that trustees may find valuable in reading through the document. So I'll pass it back over to Suzanne to summarize everything.
Thank you, Dana.
Through your chair, Cameron, and just to follow up on what Dana just went through, if any trustee would like any more detailed information on any of the items that you find in the APD, or would just like us to take you through it, you're welcome to come anytime, pop in. You don't need to make a meeting, and someone will be happy to explain or take you through it. So just as a summary then, we've got the 3 approvals, recommendations for approval, the 1 new school, Castlemore East, and the 2 boundary changes, Mount Pleasant 9, Aylesbury and Dolson, and Port Credit and Lauren Park. And for your information was the Elm Drive enrollment class cap. So after tonight, these recommendations will go to the December 18th regular meeting of the board, and then we have the community information meetings at the beginning of the new year. We in planning would like to thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, team planning. Wonderful work. Let's move it to the floor. Trustee McDonald, many of these schools are in your area. Would you like to move this to the floor? Trustee Owls would second it. It's on the floor. Are there any questions, concerns for our team about this document? Seeing none, I would just like to say thank you. I know how much work you put into this, and this is for you to, for 260 schools to have 10-year out projections every year. I use those columns a lot in my area to see where we're headed. And thank you for the details. So this has been moved, seconded. What we are approving, right? The first 3 were, we heard them, Mount Pleasant, Aylesbury, Dolson, boundary change, Port Credit, Lauren Park, boundary change, new school, Castlemore East, number 1 secondary school, and we're receiving for information the Elm Drive report. It's on the floor. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, team. Wonderful work. Item 10.2 is a report on tenders. The Caledon East Public School report is here for as a recommendation, also for our approval. And presentation will be made by Matthew Thomas, the Controller of Planning and Accommodation Support Services. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. And through you, Chair Cameron, the report in front of you includes a recommendation regarding the approval of the awarding of the contract for the construction of the new replacement Caledon East Public School to Quad Pro Construction Incorporated in the amount of $32,009,510, inclusive of the HST. This new school was announced through the Ministry of Education's Capital Priorities Program in spring 2022 as a 650 pupil place JK to 8 elementary school with a 4-room childcare center that can accommodate 73 children. Construction tender bids were received from the contractors noted in the report, and the successful bidder, again, based on price and compliance with all of the necessary technical requirements, was Quad Pro Construction. Quad Pro has recently undertaken the construction of the brand new Malala Yousafzai Public School, which just opened in September 2024. And they're currently constructing Mount Pleasant 9 Public School, scheduled to open in September 2025. And I'm pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Can we move this to the floor? Trustee Promoli will move it. Trustee Davis will second it. So it's on the floor. Are there any questions, comments? I can only say thank you. Anytime you have a new school or replacement building coming into a community, it means that you have growth. This around this school, by the way, it currently holds 254 as its MRC, but our 868 new homes being built in the boundary of the school. So this is welcome news and much needed. So thank you. All in favor of the recommendation for approval? That is carried. Thank you. Item 10.3 is Mount Pleasant number 9 Public School. The naming of the school. This is also here as a recommendation for approval. And we'll have a presentation by Superintendent Hoppy. Is he online? Yes, there he is. Thank you, sir. Welcome. Sir, welcome.
Thank you and congratulations on your appointment as chair and through you, sir.
Thank you.
The recommendation is that the board approve the proposed name of Red Cedar Public School as the official name for the school known currently as Mount Pleasant 9 Public School. Mount Pleasant 9 Public School is the newest elementary school currently under construction in the Mount Pleasant community of Brampton. The school is scheduled to be ready for student occupancy in September 2025. And for the current 2024 school year, kindergarten to grade 8 students are in the holding boundary for Mount Pleasant number 9 have been accommodated at the Aloha Holding School. In arriving at the name of Red Cedar Public School, as Superintendent of Education for the Fletcher's Meadow Family of Schools and in accordance with the board naming of schools policy, a naming committee was struck and the process of Mount Pleasant 9 student, staff, family, and community engagement was initiated. 2 surveys were conducted, gathering direct student, staff, and parent/caregiver input. The name Red Cedar has Indigenous significance as it is a sacred plant. As such, the naming committee reached out to seek feedback from Indigenous elders through the Majiding Wingashing Center for Indigenous Excellence and Land-Based Learning. Permission was granted by the elders to proceed with the name, with the request to continue to work in collaboration with the elders and the center if the name was ultimately selected. As indicated in the report, the name Red Cedar Public School was the clear favorite. If approved, this school will serve as the name of the school will serve as a lasting symbol that students, educators, and residents can connect with, fostering a sense of pride and belonging. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Hoppy. Let's move this to the floor because it's Trustee Davies' area. Will you move it? Trustee Bailey, will you second it, please? Thank you. It's on the floor. Are there any comments, questions? Yes, Trustee Bailey, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. In reading through this report, it was a pleasant read because it brought us back to when we were going through this policy and putting it together. It made me bring back to say the purpose of putting it together and saying, okay, putting the community's voice in place. I saw all that in this report, and it made me say, yes, so many voices was heard. And reading the meaning behind all of the names chosen, I was like, yes, I really liked how this all 3 choices was developed, how you came to the conclusion to all of it. So I really appreciated all of that. Good job and all the work that y'all did. And I do like the name, the number 1 name. It has so much meaning behind it. Mind you, all 3 had meaning, but the number 1 choice has even more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Davies?
I just want to say that everything written in the report is true and actually happened. Dana and I were there.
Excellent. Any other comments, questions? We good? I would like to add a voice of support as well. Maybe echo what Trustee Bailey just said in so many ways. I was so impressed when I read this. It was so inclusive. It's so broad in its inclusion. Superintendent Hoppy, you mentioned community engagement, which we all know is pretty closely tied to the trustees and the director and the multi-year strategic plan that we work together on. It's right there in the report. I cannot think of a better way to be so inclusive of your community. And I just want to say thank you for a magnificent report and a really wonderful name, and look forward to having a chance to visit there. Maybe at the grand opening, we'll all be there one day. So thank you, Superintendent Hoppy, so much for this. So it's on the floor and seconded. All in favor of approval of this one? Yes, thank you. That is carried. Thank you. 10.4 is the application status update. This is here just for our information. Presentation by Suzanne Blakeman, who's the manager of planning and enrollment for the board. Suzanne?
Thank you again, Chair Cameron, and through you. As you mentioned, this report is here for information. It includes a location map and comment letters sent to the respective municipality for the development applications reviewed by planning staff for the months of August, September, and October of 2024.
Excellent. So let's move this to the floor. Trustee Davies, move it. Trustee Elves will second it. And are there any questions or concerns? I see none, hear none. So all in favor of receipt for information? That is carried. Thank you. Item 10.5 is procurement activity report. Also here for information presented by Tanya Letitia Charles, who's controller of finance support services. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Before you is the procurement activity report. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on tender activity for goods and services at the board. All the contracts were awarded in accordance with the board purchasing policy and the board procurement regulations. A report is before you for information. In terms of communication, all referred tender results have been posted on the board's public procurement portal. Appendix 1 provides additional details, and I'm happy to respond to any additional questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's move it to the floor. Trustee Davies, move it. Trustee Joe Hall, will you second it? Thank you. It's on the floor. Any questions about item 10.5? Seeing, hearing none, all in favor of receipt for information? That is carried. Thank you. Item 10.6 is the vandalism activity report. Also here for our information presented by Thomas Chung, our controller of facilities and environmental support services. Thomas, welcome.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Cameron. This report is for receipt, and it's our annual year-end summary report for vandalism for the period from September 2023 to August 2024. We have also included a 7-year summary comparison of all vandalism and break-ins. We also have the ever-present Enzo Odessa, Manager of Security Risk Management online, should you have any questions.
So thank you. Trustee Ellis, we'll move it to the floor. Trustee Davies, will you second it? So it's on the floor. Are there any questions? Yes, Trustee Ellis, question?
Yes, sir, through you, Chair. So just reading the report, excuse me, year-end 2023 to 24, number of break-ins, and then it kind of goes down into different totals. I see number of break-ins at 27, and approximate cost of all break-in enters at around 31,700 and change. Were we able to recoup any of that cost through, I'm just curious to know if you know, the criminals that did the break-in entering, if we were able to recoup any of that cost through legal interactions with them? Were we able to?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Ellis. Mr. Enzo Odessa address the question.
Thank you. Hi, Enzo, welcome.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. In this particular year summary, we haven't received any restitution from the courts. Depending on the year, some years we do receive some payments for arrests made and restitution payments through the courts. But for this current year that just finished in August 31st, 2024, we haven't received any payments from the courts.
Thank you. And sorry, through you, Chair, That's unfortunate. I would hope that we would have, and who knows, maybe those will come down the line. The other question I had, I see approximate costs of reported vandalism at 100,000, but I guess is that a cumulative total that would include the breaking and entering? That's all types of vandalism. That's our cumulative total.
Through you, Chair, that would be more for broken windows, graffiti, and any damage to the school reported. Grounds damage, broken windows, graffiti, and those costs would be separate to the break-ins.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarifications. Any other questions? Yes, Trustee Davies?
Yes, through you, Chair. Are any of these incidents covered through insurance? And if they are, what effect is this going to have on our insurance rates?
Who would like to answer that? Enzo?
Yes, I can answer that through you, Chair. So basically our deductible for property is about $50,000. So a lot of these break-ins, the average costs are a few $1,000s. So it really never reaches our threshold for reportable losses.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, this is here for our information. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 11 is communications. We have none. Item 12, well, we have good communication, but we don't have any formal communications presented to us today. Item 12 is trustee motions for consideration. We do not have any. Item 13 is trustee notices of motion, of which we have none. And item 14 is adjournment. Trustee Bailey, will you adjourn us, please? Yeah, and seconded by trustee Ellis. All in favor?
Thank you, staff.
Carried. Thank you, everyone.